Hi everyone! Today we're going to be talking about some different invasive species that are found in Naperville, Illinois. Invasive species threaten the natural ecosystem, and Illinois actually ranks 5th in the US for invasive species introductions. Invasive species are very difficult to remove once they're introduced, and they threaten our forests, lakes, and backyards. So without further ado, let's get into some different invasive species that are found here in Naperville. First up, we have the glossy buckthorn. The glossy buckthorn is a large shrub and small tree. It can grow up to 30 feet. They have dark, shiny green leaves. The flowers are a pale green, yellowish color, and they also have dark red and purple fruit. The flowering happens in May to September, but the fruit is ripe from July through September. The glossy buckthorn is native to Europe, and it was introduced to the US in the mid-1800s. It's found in the northeast and midwest regions of the US. They produce many seeds and grow extremely quickly, and as a result, they can grow very densely and displace native plants and shrubs, which makes them a big threat to our native species. They also tend to threaten areas with low numbers of shrubs. Next, the tree of heaven. This tree grows very quickly. They grow up to 80 feet. On the twigs of this tree, they have leaf scars, and each leaflet has a glandular and notched base. The yellow flowers on this tree grow in the early summer, and the female plants produce fruit that can be a reddish tan color. They grow in very dense thickets, which can take over space that native species would need to grow. This often occurs in forests, meadows, and fields here in Illinois. They also can grow in very poor soil quality, even in cracks of concrete, which makes them able to grow in many different conditions. The species is indigenous to China and was introduced to North America and Europe. It was originally introduced as an ornamental or display species, especially planted in many cities because of its ability to grow in poor soil conditions. But because it can grow in poor soil conditions, it often invades forest edges, which results in habitat damage and loss. And the management of this species in the US is ongoing and very expensive due to how many plants there are. Next, we move into an insect called the emerald ash borer. This insect is originally from Northeast Asia, and they threaten ash trees here in the US. They were introduced here in the 1990s, originally in Detroit, Michigan, and now you can see in the map down below that they're dispersed through much of the US. Their whole life cycle can take 1 to 2 years. If there are too many larvae found in the tree, they can kill the tree, and they kill many healthy ash trees. The females lay their eggs 2 weeks after they're born, and then the eggs hatch after 1 to 2 weeks and change from a light yellow color to a brown-yellow color before they hatch. These emerald ash borers have killed millions of ash trees, and they're being deployed in an attempt to control the population, and in some denser populations, woodpeckers actually eat the larvae. But otherwise, they're not very threatened, and they're killing many of our native ash trees. The final species that we're talking about today is the round goby. These are a fish that are gray and brown, and they have a black spot near the front of their dorsal fin, as well as raised eyes. They can inhabit and tolerate a variety of habitat qualities, including areas with low oxygen levels and highly polluted areas, so they can live in almost any condition. They're native to Eastern Europe, and they live close to the shore, usually near rocks. They are one of the most invasive non-native species in the Baltic Sea, and they were introduced to the Great Lakes around 1990, and then they were first found around the Detroit area, and then were present in all of the Great Lakes by 1995. So in 5 years, the population grew so much that they were found in all of the Great Lakes. Goby are prolific for many reasons. They can live in varying conditions, as previously mentioned. They can spawn multiple times in a season, and they eat the eggs of other fish. The eggs are often eggs of smallmouth bass, which are a native species to the area. The goby's consumption of these eggs contributes to the decline of the smallmouth bass population, as well as other native fish populations. They're a very aggressive fish, and they're attempting to be controlled. In conclusion, we are attempting to control these invasive species in order to protect native species and the habitats that are threatened by these invasive species. Hopefully you learned something new today. Thank you for listening.